2025 season. So much being that people can say what they want. I believe that could have what led to Caitlin Clark being hurt this past season, but it is what it is. We're going to turn the page. We're going to get ready for this year. Now, there has been growing debate that Stephanie White plans on doing it again, running this offense through Kelsey Mitchell, providing plays and coverages to help Kelsey Mitchell move forward. Now, something Lexie Hall talked about is this injury. Now, we know when it comes to injuries and the Indiana Fever, let's just say they don't be 100% transparent.
Lexie Hull has been making the media rounds lately, sitting down for an exclusive conversation with Front Office Sports to discuss the offseason, her health status, and what lies ahead. Hull was completely absent from preseason action, leaving many wondering about her availability heading into the new season. The interview shed some light on where things stand. On the topic of her physical condition, Hull confirmed she has been managing a hamstring issue. The entire preseason was spent focused on getting her body to a place where she felt genuinely ready, not just cleared, but confident and comfortable.
When it comes to injuries and the Indiana Fever, let's just say they don't be 100% transparent.
Dealing with a hamstring injury, are we expected to see you on opening night?
Yeah, that's what this whole preseason was, just getting to a place where I felt really comfortable, really healthy, really confident. And I think we were being very cautious with that return to play, especially after last year. I think our team and our trainers saw just a lot of injuries, and we're trying to avoid that and be as cautious as we can. So my body feels great. I'm really excited to get back to Gamebridge. I have some friends coming.
The organization and its training staff were described as being especially careful this time around, given how many players dealt with injuries last season. Hull expressed that her body is in a good place now and that she is looking forward to returning to game action, with some personal guests coming in for the opener adding to the excitement around the moment. Hull also spoke about the broader uncertainty that surrounded the offseason due to CBA negotiations. From the players' perspective, there was a real period where nobody was sure whether the season would tip off on schedule. The union held firm throughout the process, pushing for what the players believed they deserved, and Hull said she took genuine pride in how the collective stood together.
Be as cautious as we can. So my body feels great. I'm really excited to get back to Gamebridge. I have some friends coming in town, so it's going to be very fun, very electric. And yeah, I'm so excited. It's been a long off season, and we're just excited to get back.
You mentioned it's been a long off season. It's also been just like the craziest of off seasons from last year because of the new CBA and the negotiations and everything. I guess from a player's perspective, did you always think the season was going to start on time? And were you always sort of confident that the union was going to get a deal here?
I mean, honestly, there's a lot of...
On a personal note, she also mentioned that having a wedding planned for November gave her an extra reason to hope the schedule stayed intact. When asked about the growing number of off-season leagues, Athletes Unlimited, Unrivaled, and the newly emerging Project B, Hull offered a thoughtful take. She suggested that these leagues serve a real purpose given how limited WNBA roster spots are, giving players competitive opportunities when the main season ends. Looking ahead, she imagined some of those leagues could eventually consolidate, creating a cleaner calendar for players who still want time to rest and recover. For now, she views them as valuable platforms that also bring fresh eyes to women's basketball during the months between WNBA seasons.
Union was going to get a deal here.
I mean, honestly, there's a lot of question marks in the end of those negotiations because as a union, I think we're just very proud of our willingness to kind of hold strong and demand what we deserve. And there was a lot of uncertainty around whether we were going to start on time. And for me, I have a wedding in November. I was like, we need to start on time because I need to be able to go to my wedding in November. So there was just a lot of things going on, a lot of parts to the puzzle. And I think just at the end of the day,
Hull also weighed in on the moment Caitlin Clark publicly called out the Fever social media team over an AI-generated image that showed an oddly rendered hand. According to Hull, Clark sent her the image privately first, asking whether it looked like her hand. Hull's immediate reaction was that it absolutely did not. She had never seen Clark with a French manicure in her life. The exchange was described as genuinely funny, and Hull noted that Clark's decision to comment on it publicly was completely in character, transparent, lighthearted, and unfiltered. The second major story making waves involves Kate Martin, one of Clark's former Iowa teammates.
I think just at the end of the day, we wanted to wait. We knew what we deserved. We knew the league had room to move, and just proud of our union and our reps and our union staff and getting a deal done in time.
Now let's
And you
fast forward
signed a
this
new
real
deal
quick
to-
and speak about this.
You've played in Athletes Unlimited. Obviously, you played at Stanford, but Athletes Unlimited, you've also played in Unrivaled as well, in addition to the WNBA. And look, we've seen other leagues like Project B spring up as well, where we've seen some WNBA players.
The Golden State Valkyries announced they are releasing Martin, a move that caught a significant portion of the basketball community off guard. Very few people anticipated this outcome, and the reaction across fan communities has been strong. Indiana Fever supporters have been particularly vocal, calling on the franchise's front office to act quickly and bring Martin into the fold. The case being made is straightforward. Martin may not be a star-level player, but she offers reliable bench minutes, brings a steady and trusted presence to the locker room, and perhaps most importantly, already has a natural on-court connection with Clark built over years of playing together. That chemistry does not need to be developed from scratch. It already exists.
Leagues like Project B spring up as well, where we've seen some WNBA players be interested in that. But do you think the goal is that you guys make enough money from either branded deals and the WNBA that you don't have to play in any of these other leagues? Or do you think that they'll always sort of still be in the conversation?
I think because the size of our league and the limited spots, that it is great to have other options in Athletes Unlimited and Unrivaled to give players the opportunity to play in the off season. I think down the line, I would envision some of.
What makes the situation even more notable is where Martin sits in jersey sales across the entire league. She ranks 4th overall, placing her above a player of Aja Wilson's caliber. That number alone speaks to the size and loyalty of the fan base that follows her. She sits just below Sabrina Ionescu on that list, which is a remarkable position for a player who has largely come off the bench throughout her professional career.
Opportunity to play in the off season. I think down the line, I would envision some of those leagues merging together and giving players the opportunity to actually have a full off season. But the length of those leagues and the length of those seasons are short in the whole scheme of things, that we still do get a good amount of time off. We get a chance to rest our body and recover. And I've loved my time playing in both of those, and I have great respect for both of those. And I think in the foreseeable future, they'll definitely still be around and bringing in a lot more eyes for the off-season people that want to watch.
I got two.
The connection between Clark and Martin is something the Iowa fan base cares deeply about, and that group represents a massive share of the Fever's audience. Signing Martin would not just add a useful roster piece, it could immediately generate goodwill among a fan base that has grown increasingly impatient with the direction of the team. Some have even suggested that adding Martin could soften the ongoing tension surrounding head coach Stephanie White, giving supporters something positive to rally around regardless of their feelings about the coaching staff. Whether the Fever front office moves on this remains to be seen.
For the off-season people that want to watch.
I got two last questions for you. The first one, Kaylin Clark called out the Fever social media team. I'm sure you saw this for like her weird AI hand that they saw. What was your thought on that? Did you think that was as funny as she did?
Well, I think she texted it to me first and was like, "This isn't my hand, right?" And I was like, "Absolutely not. I've never seen you with a French manicure before." So, it was really funny, and I think it's silly that she made a comment about him. That's just totally her.
The current roster construction may not make it straightforward, but from a pure business and fan engagement standpoint, the argument for making it happen is difficult to dismiss. Martin and Clark together represent something that already works, and right now, the Indiana Fever could use more of that. The Indiana Fever roster is locked in, and what makes it genuinely surprising is that the team may not have even filled their final developmental spot.
Is it a player now where the Fever have the luxury of benching her if she starts doing mad shit? The Fever have that luxury, whereas the Dallas Wings didn't last year. They didn't have the depth to, when she thought she was Giannis, take her off the floor. The Fever have that luxury because when Maisha Hines-Allen is at her best, she's really good. It's just how often she's at her best is diminishing every single year. But she is basically Natasha Howard. Is going to give you 5.
Franchises are not required to use those slots, and apparently the Fever chose not to bother. One developmental player on the books, and that appears to be where it stays. Kelsey Mitchell is on this squad, which means the Fever are walking into the season with one of the cleanest pure scorers in the league at shooting guard. She is on a contract that looks like a massive underpayment relative to what she brings.
Is going to give you 5 good games a year, 5 all-around elite games a year, 5 all-around elite awful or all-around awful games a year, and the rest of the games on a possession by possession, they're a roulette wheel. And one possession they could make a play that makes them look like an all-star. The next possession they could travel for when they have an open layup. Then we have Raven Johnson here at number 3. Raven Johnson.
All WNBA conversations are realistic for her this year. What the Fever now have that teams like Dallas did not last season is the depth to actually pull her off the floor if things go sideways. Dallas had no choice but to ride Mitchell through rough stretches because there was nobody behind her. Indiana does not have that problem, largely because of Myisha Hines-Allen.
Then we have Raven Johnson here at number 3. Raven Johnson, or who's the number 3? Raven Johnson, the perfect quintessential glue player, the perfect role player. Someone that I wasn't a fan of the Fever drafting at the time because of Ty Harris, but in hindsight, looks to be a really good player. Looks to be a really, really good player and could be a steal in the draft. Like, to get a player at 10 that might come into your rotation immediately and push for a starting spot on a good team, you can't ask for more. Aaliyah, best center in the league if you consider age a power forward.
When Hines-Allen is at her peak, she is a genuine difference maker. The issue is that her peak shows up less and less each year. Think of her the way people used to think about Natasha Howard. 5 games a season where everything clicks at an elite level, 5 games where almost nothing does, and the remaining games somewhere in between where any given possession could produce either an all-star caliber play or a stumble on a wide-open layup. Rhyne Howard is exactly the kind of player every contender needs tucked into their roster.
You can't ask for more. Aaliyah, best center in the league if you consider age a power forward. Second best center in the league if you consider age a center. One of the 10 best players in the league. I have her projected to be one of the 5 best players in the league this year. She might be the best player on this team. You don't hate that. Like, that's not a crazy statement to make. Sophie Cunningham, shooter. Decent enough defender, shooter. Connected piece. Perfect player to have on a pretty good contract. Lexie Hull, she better start hitting shots. And this is the one thing that really annoys me when people talk about Lexie Hull. They're like, oh, her 3-point percentage has been good.
She fits the glue player mold about as cleanly as anyone in the league. There were reasonable doubts about selecting her at 10 in the draft when that pick could have gone elsewhere, but the returns have been strong enough to make that look like a smart call. Getting a player at 10 who pushes into the starting lineup conversation on a quality team is not something franchises can count on. Aaliyah Boston might be the best player on this roster, which is not an outrageous claim.
Shots. And this is the one thing that really annoys me when people talk about Lexie Hull. They're like, oh, her 3-point percentage has been good. Lexie Hull has prolonged hot streaks and prolonged cold streaks. Like, she goes through 10-game periods where she shoots 60% from 3. And then she'll go through 10-game periods where she shoots 16% from 3. Like, it is just prolonged hot streaks and prolonged cold streaks for Lexie. There is... The only thing that is consistent about her game is her effort. The effort is there, and the effort is spectacular. I got to give credit where credit's due. The effort's absolutely spectacular for Lexie Hull. And that is the one thing, the only consistency in Lexie Hull's game.
Rank Asia Wilson as a power forward and Boston is the top center in the league. Rank Wilson as a center and Boston is second. Either way, she sits comfortably in the top 10 players in the entire WNBA, and a top 5 projection for this season is not a stretch. Sophie Cunningham provides exactly what a supporting cast player should: reliable shooting, passable defense, connective play on a sensible contract.
Absolutely spectacular for Lexie Hull. And that is the one thing, the only consistency in Lexie Hull's game is that she's inconsistent and works hard, in fairness. But yeah, obviously going to make the roster. Damiris Dantas should not be on this team. Like, how do you go from a season where you are in 2024, where you are unplayable in the playoffs? She was unplayable in the playoffs in 2024. The dumbass front office then decided to protect her over Temi when Temi was a starter, and is now
Lexie Hull is trickier to evaluate. The 3-point percentage complaints miss the actual pattern with her game, which runs in long waves. 10-game runs at 60% from deep, followed by 10-game runs at 16%. There is no middle.
Mass front office then decided to protect her over Temi when Temi was a starter and is now making $1 million, and then was the worst player in the WNBA last season on a good team. For players on good teams, the worst player in the entire WNBA was Damiris Dantas. She is the worst defender in the league. Like, again, in levels of bad defenders, like, she is a 1 out of 10 defender. Like, 1 out of 10 defender. And her shoot.
The one element that never fluctuates is effort. That part is genuinely exceptional and consistent, regardless of what the shot chart looks like. Damiris Dantas being on this roster is harder to explain. She was unplayable in the 2024 playoffs, was then protected over Temi Fagbenle, despite Fagbenle having been a starter, and proceeded to put together what was arguably the worst individual season of any player on a good team in the entire WNBA last year. Her defensive rating sits at the bottom of the league, and her shooting, theoretically a strength, landed around 20% from 3.
Like, 1 out of 10 defender. And her shooting is hypothetical. She shot like 20% from 3 last year. She has an ability to shoot the ball. And you're just living in hope, being like, maybe Brazil Dantas comes out. Maybe Brazil Dantas comes out. When she gets the ball in the post, she has a nice Dirk fade. I guess I'll say something positive. And she hit a couple of shots to beat Dallas one year. But her being on the roster and having a guaranteed spot on the roster is...
There is a version of Dantas that shows up occasionally, the Brazilian post player with a clean Dirk-style fadeaway and enough shot-making to change a game. But relying on that version appearing is a gamble the roster cannot really afford to make around a guaranteed spot. Juste Dunbar is on the bench and is likely to stay there for the full season. The organization has reportedly signaled no plans to activate any developmental player during the year, which is a notable contrast to teams like Phoenix, where a developmental pathway actually exists. The Fever's preferred approach seems to be waiting until injuries stack up badly enough to justify bringing in a hardship signing rather than developing anyone from within.